I was walking my dog along a trail that runs beside the Han River here in Seoul, South Korea, and as we were walking along the bank, my dog froze in mid-step. I had just lit a cigarette, so my eyes were not adjusted to the dark very well, but I could clearly see that something had my dog's attention. I looked up and I saw something over the water. I thought it might be some reflection at first, because the river runs through the city and there are many buildings and high-rises in the area. But then I saw it was actually above the water and not making any kind of ripples. It was just 2 or 3 yards from the bank. At first I couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a small wisp of white dust, but it glowed, and it was just above the water. It started to materialize, for a lack of a better word, and in disbelief I started to see what it was. It appeared to be a Japanese soldier in a battlefield uniform. I could make out his boots and his very distinctive hat and the button stick in my mind. He had a rifle slung around his back, and he seemed to be walking towards the bank. I couldn't see much detail in his face, but he seemed to be looking for something. I couldn't say a word. I was frozen. But my dog walked a little closer to him, and he looked down at my dog, and I think he smiled at him. My dog started to wag his tail and sniff the air. I tried to call him back to me, but I couldn't speak. He and my dog were about 15 feet away from me at this point. My dog looked back at me, and then so did the soldier. He seemed to be life-size, about 5.5 feet tall. As he looked up at me, he seemed to want to talk to me. He looked like he was stammering. I couldn't see much for detail, but I could tell by his face. And then he just vanished, in much the same way he appeared. My friend Anna was working as an English teacher in Budapest between 1992 and 1994. She had a flat in an oldish, perhaps 1930s apartment block. The furniture, apparently, looked like it had been there since the place was built, all very solid wooden stuff. In her dining room, there was a large antique mirror, and it was this that was the spooky thing. Anna swears blind that at certain times of the day, usually between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, anyone looking in it would see not just themselves, but a group of 6 or 7 soldiers in the room as well. The soldiers were wearing, according to her, First World War type uniforms, and had old rifles. The mirror always showed the same thing. The men were relaxing around a table, eating and chatting, while one of them looked anxiously out of the window. And that was it. Sadly, the mirror got broken by a visitor to the flat who got freaked out by what he saw. One night, some years ago, my grandfather relayed a story that I find absolutely compelling. One October night in the late 1950s, while on a sales trip through the hills of rural Pennsylvania, my grandfather was travelling on a back road when he saw a vagabondish-looking man walking by the side of the road far off in the distance. He said his dirty bluish-looking clothes looked torn, and he was stumbling, like he had either had too much to drink or had been in one hell of a fight. The closer he got to this man, the worse he began to feel for him, and thought he would at least offer him a lift to the next town. As he got closer still, he saw that this man was all cut up and burned and wearing a blue uniform and a blue fedora with a yellow band. He then realized that it was a Civil War military uniform of some kind. My grandfather pulled over after passing him on the road, and he sat there waiting for this person to come walking up to the car. He looked behind, and he could see the man stumbling up, so he turned around and opened the side door for him, and then sat and waited. But nobody came to the door, so he again turned and looked behind, through the back window, but there was no one there. So he got out of the old Plymouth and looked around, thinking the old drunk tripped or something. But there was absolutely no one there behind the car. He assumed, for whatever reason, the man went off into the woods or something. He yelled out into the woods to see if the guy needed a ride, but no answer came. So he got back into the car, shut both doors and took off. About 3 miles ahead there was a sign that read, Gettysburg Battlefield ahead on right.